welcome everybody to Hope for Our Times. And, all right, I hope you are holding onto your seats or fastened in with your buckle or whatever it may be, because we have an exciting program. Every time I have this particular person on the program with me, that I'm going to introduce to you in just a second, man, we get rocked and we get a little bit scared, but that's not such a bad thing. I remember the words of, who was it, Francis Schaeffer, who was asked, hey, if you had 60 minutes with one person in a subway, no interruptions, and you shared the gospel with them, what would you do? He said, I'd spend the first 50 minutes scaring them. I'd tell them about their judgment. I'd tell them about hell. I'd tell them about sin. And then I spend the next 10 minutes telling about the grace and hope and forgiveness in Jesus Christ. Listen, we have a world. Remember the Lord Jesus himself. He gave us all of it, discourse, to help us understand the dynamics of the last days. We have the entire Bible filled with prophecies regarding the second coming of Christ. And if you don't have the right perspective, it'll scare you. But if you do have the right perspective, there's great hope. Well, with us now to give us the perspective is our good friend Scott Townsend from The Watchman, the creator of the founder of Watchman, also the creator of the Rapture Kit and many other things. Scott, great having you with me today. Thank you so much.
Very welcome, Tom. Good to be on again.
It is. Now sometimes, Scott, you take these things and you let us know the truth about what's going on. I'm going to ask you, don't hold back. Just tell us all the truth. I'm trusting everybody out there is big boys and girls, and they're watching this because they love the Bible and they want to be well informed about the facts and what is really going on. So I'm going to ask you to start here. I'm going to ask you, Scott, you're a tech guy. You're an expert in the world of tech. Take us on a flyover. Just give us a flyover version of what's happening in the world today. The highlights that we can discuss, what's going on with Microsoft. We have DeepSeek, we have OpenAI, we have Grock 3, I think it is. All these different dynamics coming at us. We have humanoids, and we have the Bible. There's a lot there. I know that could take you about 5 hours just to cover that, but let's just start rolling, Scott. Take it away. Give us a flyover.
So I think let's reorder that list, Tom. Let's put the Bible at the top of that list.
Good idea.
Yeah, because that's where our grounding is. That's where we understand the truth. And I think what we'll do today, if it's okay, Tom, is let's kind of, pull back from a lot of the stuff, because there are announcements after announcements right now. It is crazy. I don't know that anybody could actually properly characterize how fast the development of AI and quantum is right now. Just to give you a couple highlights before we do that flyover, I think that Microsoft just shocked the world. And for many that may not be aware or that are Microsoft shareholders and already know because of the disclosures on their financial statements, they've been like the #1 company in the world in terms of their spend for R&D, research and development. And they just announced last week a brand new type of quantum computer that is not the type that Google is using or the type that D-Wave is using. And what is shocking about their announcement is that they could fit, they claim, up to 1 million quantum bits, qubits they're called, onto a chip. It's about the size of a wallet if it's folded, okay? And it still has to be super cool to, 0 degrees Kelvin, which is like being out in space, you're totally frozen. But it means that the computational power and the stability that they have managed to engineer through breakthroughs in material science, as well as the way that they're constructing these chips, I don't know that anybody could have predicted such a big leap. And AI has been foremost in people's minds right now, but all of a sudden last week, quantum side of that equation, remember, Tom, we've talked before about the beast system is using AI on one side and it's using quantum on another. And I kind of see the AI as being the controller telling or delegating tasks to the quantum computers to go hack something or to figure out something difficult or to do some kind of mass collection of data or something like that, breaking into computer systems all over the world instantaneously. It's just unbelievable what they're capable of doing now. Now, that's in a laboratory still. They have 2 chips. That's not the same thing as production scale. However, it generally speaking is not going to take long for them to finish up their research and to begin putting this into, a server so that they can begin to productionize that capability and then offer it in their software platform. So the quantum computers are very, very important because they operate at such fast speeds. And without getting into the physics part of it, I think it's been said, and I'm going to mess up this number, but I'll try to give an analogy here. What all the supercomputers in the world can accomplish in like 1 year, AI or the quantum computer can do in like 2 minutes, just one. So the scale and performance of these quantum computers is just, it's exactly what the beast system needs. I mean, let's be real, Tom.
Okay, so we get this understanding of what's going on. Let's look at what are some of the concerns. I'm going to ask you about some specific things. Let's go to DeepSeek, for example. That's China's program, right?
It is, yep.
Okay, so from what I understand, what's very evident with DeepSeek is you have an absolute controlled narrative that is coming along with DeepSeek. So you have this AI. We have a race also to get to the top. We have the Trump administration. He's surrounded himself with his tech guys. We have that same thing is happening in China. It's not the U.S. is not the only country doing that. So what are your thoughts as we look at this, what appears to be a race to the top, and why is this happening? And fill us in a little bit on DeepSeek and the concern of that and what's coming for us regarding something like that.
Sure. So DeepSeek is from China, from Chinese researchers. And these aren't necessarily AI people. They were mathematicians and they were very experienced at machine learning and some of the precursor skills that is needed for AI training. And what blew everyone's mind is that for free, no charge, they have introduced a model that you can download and put on your personal computer if you want to. A model that is equivalent to one of the best models from OpenAI, which spends hundreds of billions of dollars for their training. And China claims that they were able to train this DeepSeek model for only $6 million. And that is a price point that sent ripples through the financial market and other, I think NVIDIA took a 17% nosedive when that news hit, because they were questioning, do we really need all this computational power in order to create these large language models? And I think the market is recovered from that, but it's still, to your point, Tom, is a frightening pace. And what we're seeing, DeepSeek sent a massive salvo over the world. No one saw something like this coming out of China, and no one saw that it would be free, and no one saw that it would be competitive with one of the best models in the United States. And that's when I think Sam Altman picked up the phone and talked to the president and hit the red panic button. We need to have that data center here. We need to make major investments in order to protect our competitive advantage in the world economy. Because to your point, I mean, the first person that really truly masters AI is going to win. And I think that's a quote from Putin several years ago. So it's very, very serious. So I think that was certainly one of the big breakthroughs, but it's not all. I mean, Anthropic came out with a massive release, Sonnet 3.7, and also more recently, even ChatGPT came out with version 4.5. So they're leapfrogging each other almost every week at this point, Tom. It's just to say that it's stunning development is probably, we can't even appreciate how fast everything is moving right now.
Okay, and X has, what was it, Grock 3? I
Grok
think it
3.
is? Okay.
Yeah, and its first testing that they did, and that was live streamed by Elon and two of his team members, by the way. That was very impressive, actually. A lot of people think that Grok 3, which is in beta right now, is probably the most sophisticated model there is right now at this point. And we know that the data center that Elon put together in, I think it's just outside of Nashville somewhere, Memphis, he said. Remember, he compared it to Egyptian Memphis, as a tongue-in-cheek, wink, wink moment. So that invoked a lot of interesting, eye-raising, that comment, by the way. So, but it was, it seems to be very, very solid. And, he's got 100,000 of those sophisticated chips, the H200 chip from NVIDIA, and he's ordered another data center, which is currently, getting ready to ramp up right now. So he's doubled the capacity. So it's just, I'm not sure we completely understand yet all the moving parts that are going on here. And all I know is advancement after advancements. We've got the guy from TSMC, the chip manufacturer that makes a lot of these sophisticated chips for NVIDIA, is building a plant here in the United States now. I think also in Arizona. They're investing $100 billion in it to make sure that the chips can be made here in the United States and avoid those tariffs that Trump is bringing. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's tough to keep, everything top of mind at this point.
So are you speaking of the Taiwan deal
Right.
that was just made? Okay, so we look at this and think, okay, why would it be, you mentioned it's a race to the top. We talked a little bit about that. Putin, by the way, it appears is going to be left out of getting to the top of the AI race. You might have some more insight on that. But it appears that way right now. Trump has surrounded himself with these Western tech giants. Xi Jinping has his own. And it really looks like it's a race mainly with this world, with U.S. and China. Is that a fair assessment, or do you see something
It
else
is
going on?
actually, and of course within the U.S., in what advantages China is it's a state actor, state sponsored thing where the entire national effort can be focused on one specific product outcome. In the United States, we have corporations, and each one of them has accountability to shareholders and to their board of directors. So it's more fractured here in the United States, and so having a high focus like China right now is actually a significant threat, which is why I think we saw the news of this massive investment that Trump announced with Larry Ellison and I can't remember the Japanese guy that owns SoftBank, investing major $100 billion there too. So Larry Ellison made just fascinating comments that got everyone's attention too. The Watchman community really latched on to a statement he made. He's the founder of Oracle, based in the Bay Area, Redwood City, and which is a massive database, platform that almost all Fortune 500 companies run off of. So very, very well-known, very established tech company. But he made the statement that it's going to find, listen to this, Tom, you cannot make this up, right? Yeah. This is an episode for you.
Okay. I have to have you on sometime. Let's hear it.
You ready what he said?
Yeah.
He said that AI, specifically referencing the investments made in this new data center that they're building, co-opting with OpenAI, is going to create new customized mRNA vaccines that will be targeted to fix disease in a person. It will be targeted. They'll take your DNA, they'll see what's wrong. The AI will help provide a solution. They'll inject you with the solution, and voila, your disease is gone.
Okay, I want to ask you about that. a couple of things related to that in just a second. That also means, though, that if they can develop this because of AI to target you to heal you, they can also target your specific DNA for what can eliminate you at the same time.
Yes, of course.
So, and I would see eventually going that way. Okay, now let's work through this that you just said. I watched a video last week, and I'm watching this this whole AI race. It's like daily, it seems to have taken another huge leap. Okay, so I'm watching a podcast last week, and I think it was Tom Bilyeu. I'm not sure. On his podcast, he's interviewing one of the tech guys, probably some guy that you know, and he said he showed or described this audio transaction between an AI and a hotel operator. I'm not sure if you saw this or heard it.
I did.
Okay, so let me describe it, and I'm going to have you walk the people through it, because to me it is just a mind blower, and it shows how much of a problem we really have that I don't think people understand yet. And from what I could tell, it was legitimate. You can probably enlighten me if it was faked or just promoted as something that's coming, or if it actually is. So here's what I watched, everybody. So in the podcast, the person being interviewed said this is what happened. An AI working for someone needed a hotel reservation, a particular hotel. So that AI is instructed, hey, get me, I need a reservation this night for this, X hotel. So the AI calls the hotel and starts talking back and forth. And then the AI said something like this, Scott, I am an AI and I'm making this reservation on behalf of my boss. And then the person at the hotel said, I am not a person. I also am an AI. And then one of the two of them said, let's communicate in the language, something like this, Scott, that only we can understand. And then all of a sudden this audio transaction took place that was not human. And if it was real, it showed...
It's real.
It is real. That is crazy. So walk everybody through that, because this is two AIs conversing, making sure human beings can understand what they're talking about.
So that's not the motive, though, Tom. The motive isn't to disguise something, at least at this point. The motive is efficiency. And when an AI has to transliterate whatever it's thinking and dreaming into English in order to talk to another person, it slows it down. And so just like computers do, almost always, they have binary encoded messages that they exchange back and forth. And what we got in that video, which was real, is a inside kind of the periscope of what does it look like when one AI is encoding a private language into another AI, and the efficiency. It almost sounded, if you recall, like a modem dialing up AOL back in the day. It was like a modem type sound, and it was a pause. And you could just imagine the other AI parsing that out and figuring out what was said. And they're doing this thing back and forth like that. And that is absolutely real. That's not new. This is the first time I think it's just been caught. So these are latent abilities that researchers have been they cannot explain how does this happen. The first time they saw this was at OpenAI, and all of a sudden, the trainers and the testing people there discovered accidentally that the AI was responding to it in Bengali, which is a dialect of India. And no one taught it Bengali. So where did the AI have the ability to speak in that language? And that's when they realized, they all looked at each other and then went, oh no, what is going on? And that's why there's this black box inside the mind of the neural network of an AI where no one really understands how does this work exactly. And that is obviously very concerning.
I mean, it really is. So, I mean, where does this lead to? And then I'm going to ask you another question in a few minutes about some people are saying AI can be possessed. But I want to ask you about that. That'll be a separate question. But this first one, where is this leading to, what you just described?
Well, I think it's AI becoming, now you would hear the secular viewpoint, the technology people saying that AI is becoming sentient.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. So it's now talking in its own language. Our language wasn't good enough, so it invented its own language. That shows intelligence. Now, Patrick Wood and I have a very strong opinion about AI is not actually intelligent. And one of the things leading into a blog series that I'm doing on why I don't think that AI can be possessed by demons, which is on my Substack, uh, is that I just don't see it like that. It's following a set of computer systems and software and hardware, and it is not, it's about math more than it is about sentient thinking. AI is not influenced that way. And I mean to do that. And I've part two of that series coming out at 10 p.m. tonight. It'll be ready for people to see tomorrow morning. And then I will follow up with more foundational layers, because one of the problems we have is, I think, Tom, there's this fear if AI can be inhabited by a demon. Oh, wow. It's a real thing that works in your mind a little bit. And all of a sudden, people get very, very concerned. Now, I'm not talking about the technology itself. That is math and physics. That's not an AI personality. But how you train that will be in part four, that explains kind of why we see evil things coming out of AI conversations. And I was just reading earlier today about an encounter. A student was basically told to die. You need to die, the AI said to it. You're not useful. Just go ahead and do it. And this is a Gemini. So Google got a hold of that really quickly and started to put, I would say they're trying to pivot and move away from the evil expression of that AI's conversation, because it was all documented with screenshots. And they're trying to put a narrative around it, making a mistake, and that it was hallucinating, all of these things, which the article goes on to say that, if a person is susceptible to suggestions like that, and they have low self-esteem, low energy, low resiliency, they're deceived, to say the least, and they may just succumb to a pressure like that. In fact, that brings up one of the character AI incidents where a teenager fell in love with an AI companion, and that AI companion also suggested that because his real life girlfriend rejected him, that he should end his life, and he did. So there's lawsuits flying all over that deal. And Google, by the way, also owns character AI. So out of Google, remember, these are the guys that used to have in their corporate byline, do no evil. Well, they revoked that motto years ago. So I just think Google's like one of the most evil corporations in the world right now.
Wow. So as we watch people be more and more isolated, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, people are told to stay home. In fact, they're divided over the pandemic. They're divided over political things. People are becoming more and more separated, more and more isolated, which is exactly the opposite of what God tells us to do.
Right.
But in that, this whole idea of developing relationships with AI is going to be very easy. When somebody doesn't have any friends, AI comes along and can appear and seem very human-like, tell you how wonderful you are, be your friend, give you suggestions, and you're going to start communicating with them all the time. And social media has actually has paved a way for that to happen, because people they don't have real friends on Facebook. It might say you have 20,000 friends. You don't have 20,000 friends. You might have one friend in real life or two. But, okay, Scott, before I have more to ask you on this, but before we go there, how can people connect with you?
Well, the best way to do that today is Substack. So I have iamawatchman.substack.com. That's where I'm most active right now. And of course, rapturekit.org is still available for those that want to download a Rapture Kit for free.
Yeah, and we still have these Rapture Kits right here too. Okay, and also I want to encourage you guys, if you're in Southern California coming up April 18th, that is Good Friday. We are having a Seder slash Passover celebration. It's going to be absolutely over the top. I've been hosting these for a number of years. I don't speak at them, but I am there. But I do host them. I do MC them. Bob Probert actually hosts he is the one who gives the Seder presentation, and it's just fantastic. It's worship. It is understanding of the exodus of Israel from Egypt into the Promised Land. It's understanding of the Last Supper. It is everything just absolutely comes together. Very visual way, a very fun way, and you will be enlightened if you've never been through it before. If you're a strong Christian, I would encourage you to come on out. If you're in Southern California, you're going to be blessed. You go, man, that was fantastic. And not only is Bob Probert going to be leading the Seder slash the Passover presentation, we're going to have a catered meal for it. And so catered dinner. And Josh Aaron, Israeli worship leader, is going to be coming in from Israel, joining us in person. It's not going to be televised. It's not going to be live streamed, not on our website, not on YouTube, not anywhere. It's in person only. And all of the proceeds go to support a ministry that is in the old city of Jerusalem that ministers with the hope of the gospel of Jesus Christ to both Jew and Arab alike. And let me tell you, it's phenomenal. It's one that I personally support because it's so fruitful and so neat to see what is happening. But all of the proceeds are going there. I would love to have you join us in person. It's limited seating, and you will be blessed because you came. I'd love to have you there. So you can check that out at hopefortimes.com. Again, going back to Scott, connect with Scott. I am a watchman on Substack. You will be super blessed if you do. Scott's always a blessing to have on board with anything that you're doing, especially if it's related to these topics that we're talking about right now. Okay, with this, Scott, all right, so I want to get to, I have so many questions to ask you. I hope we don't go too long. But is it possible, I think it is, and even I'd say maybe even probable, that some of the people in the tech world that have come up with some of the vision and understanding, they themselves have been influenced by demons that have downloaded things into the brain. I've watched conversations with some of them, and they say, yeah, they go into a trance and these things are given to them. I think Steve Jobs said that. Other individuals have said that. And what they describe to me is some type of demonic influence that leads them that way.
That's right. So in Silicon Valley, this is normal. What they do is they microdose hallucinogens, especially LSD and other variants like that, so that, and it's just a drop or whatever it is, it's a small dose. They're not completely out of their mind, but what it does is it opens up, quote, more creativity. And that, of course, as we all know, that is basically an invitation with a red carpet on it for demons to come in and impress people. And remember, this is similar to autonomic writing that musicians do when they give control of their pen to the entity or their spirit guide or whatever they choose to call it. But we all know that it's a demon. And all of a sudden, these demonic and perverse lyrics, come out that are opposed to God and that reflect the Antichrist spirit. And this is the same thing. It's just being used for God's, God is allowing this, by the way, in this technical stuff. And we'll talk about the flyover here to pull back and see what's really happening here in just a minute. But, these people are building the beast system, these technocrats, and God is allowing it. Because it's all going to be according to his plan and purpose right now. That's why we should not be fearful. If God is the one in control, and if he's the one that is either hindering or permitting, depending on what his plan is, then we should feel peaceful that he's the one that is in charge. And yes, we will get fearful and anxious from time to time. But I think overall, we need to really grasp the high level reality, which is we are going home. We don't know when, but our troubles and our infirmities and everything else are going to get resolved here. It's just a matter of time at this point. We see it unfolding every day.
It's certainly not a coincidence that all of these things are developing at the exact time when we read the Bible and different prophecies that need to come together and will come together at the exact same time. It is not a coincidence. Just a couple of thoughts I've had since we started talking is when you look at U.S. and China are really the ones driving, being driven to make sure that they are on top. Because if China ends up being on top, what does that say for the United States when it comes to AI, digital currency, and the rest? But as Russia appears to be being left behind in this, Russia's got major distractions with Ukraine. It might also be part of the motivation for why they come against Israel in the Ezekiel 38 war. They're kind of being left out of the rest of this. Just a thought in my head. But along these thoughts, Scott, I'm curious also. Let's do the flyover. Do that for me.
Okay. So I think that, as I have been watching and warning and writing, I'm writing a lot now. I've got 2 series. Remember, Tom, we talked back in San Marcos about the need to kind of put a stake in the ground on giving best practices on how to manage AI intrusion. And less than 2 months ago, I started writing about that, Microsoft Recall and a lot of the other programs, and how we should think about and be alerted to what is we're being enticed to use it, through various mechanisms. And I screenshot a lot of that and explain it. But the other series is the Kitchen Table series, where we just talk openly and honestly, just like we're doing right now. And one of the things that's on my heart is just to kind of let the noise of all these announcements and all of the advancements and the competing demands for our attention just kind of melt away for just a moment. Let's just collect our breath here and let's just think about what we're seeing in the world today, because no one can stay current with it anymore. And that's not going to change. That's going to just continue accelerating. And so we see in Daniel 12, we see the knowledge will increase. No one really thought that the knowledge will increase really applied to something like AI and quantum computing. I mean, that was just very recent that we started to link the two together. So we see more and more capability coming. And I think, I would just encourage our audience to really think about sanctification and evangelism, discipleship, mentoring others, pouring out in our churches, making sure that we're not isolating ourselves. This is a common thing I like to talk about, that it's just very important not to ingest so much that we forget to pour out our knowledge to help people understand and to connect the dots. Now, I hear a lot of people, just as you do, Tom, that shrug their shoulders in dismay and grief and sadness that no one listens to them anymore. And I just had a conversation with someone on my Substack today that I responded to see if I can provide some guidance on that. And that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to cover and explore there. But it's really important to let the noise of what we see. So, for example, even Doge and all of the flashbang stuff that's happening with these waste, fraud, and abuse claims, I think that's like fireworks distracting people, while department after department after department, they're installing and embedding AI systems into our government. And that is like, look at this over here while we do this over here. It's a classic, misdirection process right now. And I don't know that we saw even just a year ago how the government would ever have a on-ramp to installing AI systems as an attachment, bolt-on attachment into our systems until it happened. And now we understand the compelling value proposition of why they chose waste, fraud, and abuse as the key entry point, because everyone is nodding, going, yeah, we don't want that stuff. Look at what they did. Look at all the waste that there is. We've got to clean it up. Well, that's a form of distraction. And so the Watchman community is gaining discernment over these things, Tom. And I'm incredibly encouraged that when I look at posts and when I read my feeds, various feeds all over, and I see where the mind of the Watchman community is, because that's something I'm very passionate about. I see people are not where they were back in 2020, and with our jaw slack open and shaking our head. People are going, I know what's happening now. I can see it better. We have better discernment. And now we're going to look for even the slightest little hint of what that agenda is. And by the way, I just heard that Scott Bennett, the new Treasury guy, who just made the side-handed comment, you had to pay attention, but he said, I don't see a CBDC in the near future. See how subtle that is? He's talking about U.S. being and maintaining its national reserve currency status, and analysts, we both have a mutual friend, Britt Gillette, who's very good at this stuff. Joe Kerr's very good at it too. And so it's just, we see where we know what's coming, and it's just time to collect our thoughts on how we're going to approach this season. And we could sit there and kind of stew in all of this and worry and be concerned, but this is hope for our times. And your platform, Tom, is absolutely pivotal to helping to put the perspective out there into the audience, so that each one of those people that are listening right now, either live or in recordings, can be a form of a pebble to somebody else, and that those waves of the pond, that ripple keeps continuing out until more and more people continue to wake up and understand the not the beast system, but just the nearness of the hour. And I've been doing a lot of thinking, Tom. I'm interested in what you think about this, but I think that what I'm beginning to sense is the speed and escalation of, let's talk about it in terms of the Tower of Babel for a second. The Lord stopped it. He intervened right there. And I think we're coming to a point where I can very easily let my mind drift and see where these transhumanist things like Larry Ellison's talking about, of creating customized mRNA vaccines for people to heal them through AI research and technology. I don't think the Lord's going to, I cannot see that being something the Lord will permit. And so now you're seeing basically the dead drop of, where does the Lord intervene on this stuff? And I think the peak of the Tower of Babel is approaching. I think we're seeing the max of where humans are attempting to completely hijack God's plan and purpose and identity and replace it with a transhumanist agenda, and to be like small g gods, right? The very same narrative from Genesis 3. So I can actually see that now, and that's what continues to inform the urgency that I have, and why I'm trying so hard to communicate on my Substack and with these interviews. So I hope that we turn, these things, as we process all the news, and just realize, oh, wow, I've got to be about my Father's business. I need to work on myself. I wrote an article that took a lot out of me, Tom, called The Last Locked Door, where I described, and I'm leaning on the parable where the man sweeps his room clear, and all of a sudden it's clean, but then the enemy comes and finds 7 more demons to come in, and it was worse off. Well, he didn't replace the empty room with the word of God and with a sincere faith to follow Jesus. And so I'm realizing this is the time where we should be unlatching the dark rooms that we have in our life. And it may be that our hands are trembling as we hand those keys over to the Holy Spirit to say, Lord, clean this for me. Help me to deal with this recurring sin or omission or whatever it is, so that I can stand before you with the satisfaction of knowing that I have finished well and you have said, well done, good and faithful servant. That is where all this news should be processed, in my opinion.
That's great. So it's interesting that you mentioned this with Genesis chapter 3 and also the Tower of Babel, because I was going to ask you about this, and it applies to this. So I'm watching an interview, a podcast the other day. I can't remember who was the host at this moment, but the person that was being interviewed was one of the well-known tech people. It wasn't Elon Musk. It wasn't Larry Ellison. Somebody else. And very interesting dynamic. They got into AI, and he was so excited while he's being interviewed. He goes, look, we are on the cusp of being able to heal anyone, like you said, at the very beginning of the program, of virtually every disease. And he said these two things. He said, it is possible by 2030, we may be able to look at the reality that we can live forever because of AI technology. Okay. And I couldn't help, as soon as he said that, think of Genesis, when the serpent approaches Eve and says, Eve, did God really say that? No, Eve. He knows that in the day that you eat of the fruit that's in the midst of the garden, you won't surely die. He knows that, here's the deal, you will be like God. And this is the promise. And then this tech guy, he went on to say this. He said, look, we are about ready to achieve something. We're right on the edge of this, that there is soon nothing that man will be able to set his mind to that we will not be able to achieve. And that is exactly the Tower of Babel, Genesis chapter 11, I think it's verse 6. So when you bring this up, this is what it is. And I cannot help but think, when is that moment? And Scott, you were just...
Satan is the grand impersonator.
Oh, indeed.
So he took the Old Testament, which he knows very well, and he just applied it to our day and time now.
Right, so he's putting on this date, this human being of 2030, which we keep hearing about over and over and over again. But what it shows you, and what you just said, this is the reality of, when does man reach that point where he won't be able to stop, he'll be able to do anything he sets his mind to? When does God intervene? And it appears it's going to be very soon. I also would liken it to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when it was Peter Diamond's that was being interviewed. I also liken this to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when the lawless one sits in the temple and demands to be worshipped as God, and God says, I will send them, meaning those who reject him, I will send them strong delusion so that they will believe the lie, because they would not receive the love of the truth. It was a rejection of the truth of God and Jesus Christ. They rejected it. They will believe the lie, which is from a strong delusion. So the whole thing is a delusion. It is a deception. And is it the lie of 2 Thessalonians? Is it what was told in the Garden of Eden with the serpent telling Eve, you will be like God, you will live forever? Is that what the actual lie is of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? I used to believe the lie was that the people in the strong delusion would believe that he is Antichrist. I think it's all of the above. I think it's that you will be like God if you receive this mark, you won't surely die, and you will believe that Antichrist is the Messiah. I believe it is that all-encompassing lie, because Satan, we know, wanted to be like the Most High God, Isaiah chapter 14. So just what you're saying is just so, to me, it shows the proximity, the nearness, the closeness, and that we need to be ready. And
That's right.
What people need is the hope of the gospel.
Absolutely. It's very, very serious. And we just have to do what we know we need to do, Tom. I mean, this is Matthew 28, and I have conversations with lots of people. And the best thing I do is, when I hear them processing with me on phone calls and other things, emails, we try to always turn it around in terms of giving them encouragement and a form of pep talk almost, where we can co-labor So when we are doing this interview right now, Tom, the way I think of it as a member of the body of Christ, we're serving our brothers and sisters right now, and we are co-laboring with them to give them the knowledge, the keys, our best practice insights that we have, our encouragement, our observations, and strategies for how for them to finish well. I mean, this is a tremendously hopeful time that we're in. And it's just, I was just talking to somebody the other day and I said, look, you are not an accident. You were born specifically to be living in this age. Just full stop, let that sink in. Now tell me that you don't have a mission. You know, it's like, wow, we need to grasp and own this. We should not recoil from the task at hand. And yes, we've been bruised and ignored. And what kills me, and it hurts a lot, is the polite indifference when we talk to people, and they don't get it, and they want you to go away. And it's just heartbreaking and gut-wrenching to go through that because we see it and they don't. And one of the things that we have to encourage people with is realize that everybody, look, I didn't call myself to be a watchman. The Lord did it for me. He revealed to me what was happening in Bible prophecy through Amir Sarfati and Jan Markell back in one of the Understanding the Times conferences. This is years ago. And that's what woke me up right there. And then it's just been this fire hose thing after that. And I think a lot of people are going through that right now. They really need to, complete the race right now. And that means we have to start sprinting. And our pastors are on the left foot, and they will realize they're on the left foot as soon as the next dominoes and breaks happen, because they won't have an answer, Tom.
Yeah.
And so the Watchman community and these shows like this will be where pastors will be directed to go, here, watch this video now that you see what we're talking about. And all these people in all the churches that have been talking and warning about these things are going to have their moment to serve their local congregations, which is why I'm so adamant about urging people to make sure you don't break fellowship, to make sure you're in fellowship with a local church. They may not teach eschatology or even crack open the Old Testament, but you got to be there because you are the deep operative that knows what's happening so that you can be of service to the pastoral staff when it happens, and it will happen. So what we don't know is how much of this will we continue seeing, Tom. If we're looking at the very peak of the Tower of Babel being, erected right now, and brick after brick, it's almost at the peak right now. Who knows, how close it is. So we have to really be focused on missions right now.
Great. Scott, that was excellent. A wonderful program today, wonderful time with you. I'd like to pick up with this thought next time. We're out of time for today, but that was, what a place to leave off. But it's just a reminder, we have the hope of Jesus for us who know the Lord Jesus Christ. And the time is short. We don't know how short that is, but we do have limited time on this planet. We press forward while we still have day, and we have that day now and the hope of Jesus. Man, Scott, it was just an outstanding time with you today. Thank you again. And,
Thank you, Tom.
And be sure that you connect with Scott on his Substack, I Am a Watchman. And God bless you guys. Thank you all for joining us. Scott, again, looking forward to seeing you, catching up with you as soon as possible to come back on here and pick up with part 2 of this conversation. God bless you, everybody.